Hey YouTubers! So, you got your vehicle all set, it's ready to go, and you're ready to restore it. But you got to think of a couple things first. Number one, where are you going to restore it? Do you know that the area that you're going to restore it in is going to be housing that vehicle for months, if not years? Number two, toolage. Do you have the tools for that build? I'll go over those things next. Hello YouTubers, this is JT coming to you once again from the wonderful but flippin' cold frozen tundra of Wisconsin. Man, it's cold outside. If you see little smoke coming from my breath, it's because of the cold and not because I was smoking. So, this is the second video regarding the restoration of the 1967 GTO. Today's going to be a two-parter. I want to give you all the checklist of the tools and accessories that you're going to need so that you're all set and ready to tear down that beast. But before I get into that, I thought I'd touch on something I want you to do before you jump into it blindly. First of all, let me talk about the car behind me. This is hopefully my next resto job. This is a 1967 Ford LTD convertible. I don't think this person's going to be restoring it anytime soon, so I'm going to see if I can get it from him and maybe restore it myself. As you can see, it's going to need some work, but it's going to be some fun work. So that's why I'm standing in front of you talking about this car. So you have that old rusty bucket looking right in front of you, and you have huge plans for this baby. This future beast is going to be awesome. It's going to have a monster engine. It's going to have a blower sticking out of the hood. It's going to have some huge fat tires and shiny rims and smoked windows and little fuzzy dice hanging from the rearview mirror, and it's going to be a showstopper. Well, these are all really nice goals to attempt, but you need to come back down to reality and start thinking of a lot of things before you even touch that car. The biggest one should be regarding a budget. You see, restoring any kind of car is an expensive venture, and if it's a classic muscle car, it's going to be even more of an issue. It is possible to restore a car on a reasonable budget, but keep in mind, the more you cheat yourself out of getting what you really want for your restoration, the more your car will not look like you envisioned it to be right from the start. From my experience, restoring a classic muscle car and making it look the way you want it to be is going to cost you no less than $50,000. Now that's a sharp price, but I'm just saying. Some of you may flinch at that price, and others may think I'm nuts, and that's fine because I did the same thing before I started restoring my car. And let me tell you, those bucks added up. I thought if I keep on a strict budget and do most of the work myself, I can restore the car for around $25,000, and that just did not happen. What restorers will tell you to do is set a budget on how much it's going to cost to restore your car based on the severity of damage and rust and replacements that are going to be needed for the car, and then add 30% to that. I would agree with what they say, and I would even make it more than 30%. Also, regarding the time it will take you to finish your restoration, if you think it'll take, let's just say 12 months, think again. Just listen to this video I took on the very first day of the project.
All right, so there you have it. My 1967 GTO. It's April 26, 2014. I got 3 years. Here we go.
If you were having outside help on the body or the engine or the electrical, for instance, keep in mind that these places aren't just sitting back waiting for you to come. A lot of places I worked with were busy and their deadlines were rarely met. And it's no fault of their own, it's just that they had other work to do, that went over, and suddenly now they're working on my car. And I expected them to work on it weeks, if not months before. Just keep that in mind. I'm not trying to scare anybody away from doing a resto. Hell, I doubt if I could, because if you're determined enough to do it, you're going to do it anyway, just like me. All I am doing is making you realize that restoring a muscle car is not going to be cheap, and it's not going to come fast. Remember that when you think you can do a lot of this by yourself, you'll soon find out that there are some things you can't after you tear this vehicle down and see that restoring certain areas of the vehicle is going to be more than you know how to do. An example was when I tore my car down completely to the frame and I realized that the body was in much worse shape than I had imagined. Only after taking it apart did I notice many areas of the body were extremely rusted out and in need of repairing that I could not do. So off to the body shop it went. You see, restoring any car is an expensive venture, and if it's a classic muscle car, it's going to be even more of an issue. It is possible to restore a car on a reasonable budget, but keep in mind, the more you cheat yourself out of getting what you really want for your restoration, the more your car will not look like what you envisioned it right from the start, and you're not going to be happy with it. And if you don't stick that money into it and do it right from the start, you're never going to be happy with the way it turns out in the end. So never chintz and never cut corners. Now, what kind of car are you restoring? If it's a popular car like a G.T.O, Nova, Chevelle, Camaro, Firebird, you'll be able to find nearly every single part you need from places like OPGI, Ames, National Parts Depot, just to name a few. But what if you're not? What if you have a rare and old car where the parts are hard to come by? If you think you can revive a lot of the parts on your car, you better be sure, because if not, you've just gone head first into a restoration and no parts to make it run. Just be sure you have the suppliers available with parts for your car. So, if you're dying to start this restoration, you have an idea on where the money is going to come from, and you are going to keep in mind that sometimes things are totally out of your hands and can't be improved as far as cost and time, let's get to the second part of this video, and that is location, 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 and what kind of parts do you need for the resto job. Okay, so before we get into the toolage that you need to restore your car, you got to think of one more thing. Where are you going to restore it? That's right. This car that you're tearing down and putting back together for months and months, if not years and years, is going to be sitting someplace for a very long time. Where's it going to sit? Where in your property can you store this vehicle for months, if not years at a time? And it's got to be inside. Can't be outside, because you're defeating the purpose. You're trying to restore a car, get rid of all the rust, and if you think you're going to keep it outside, it's going to rust out there. So, what do you need? You need some room. Okay, so maybe you don't need all that room. I just happen to have this kind of room, and it was ideal for restoring my car, and I was very fortunate. Matter of fact, I parked it right down there and put in special lights above, those right there, and worked on the car for many months in that area. Now when the winter came, that was a different story. I brought it into the garage, and I gave up my parking space in the garage during the winter months so that I could still work on the car, keep warm, because remember, we're in the frozen tundra of Wisconsin. It gets a little nippy out here sometimes, like 20, 30, 40 below. You need a place other than the barn to work on your car, because many barns like this one are not heated, so it takes some time. Oh, there is one other thing that I need to mention to you. If you think you're going to restore your vehicle and not make a mess, think again. So wherever you're keeping this vehicle and restoring it, if you're not covering that floor with something, or don't have something like a sealant on top of your garage floor, you are going to leak transmission fluid, oils, any kind of greases. Especially if that car is really old, you're going to see tons and tons of rust like that, and dirt like this, all over the place. These are stains in our barn from when I was taking apart the engine, pulled out the tranny fluid leaked all over the place. And I mean, it's gonna happen, I'm telling you. So keep that in mind when you're working on the car and where you're going to put it. Another two things you're going to need, obviously a jack, a very good jack if you can. And remember, on a jack, I mean, again, you don't need top of the line. I believe I got mine from Sears years ago, and it serves its purpose well. It has a little magnetized compartment on the end there, so that when you're taking parts off, you can throw them in there. Kind of nice, hardly ever used it, but again, make sure the weight of your jack stand can handle your car. Don't go cheap on that. Make sure you have plenty of weightage on your jack stand. Also, you're going to need an engine hoist. When you're working on your car, you're ready to lift that engine out of the car, you're going to need one of these. Now, I would suggest you renting it on the day that you're going to be using it, or ask a buddy if you can use his. That's what I did. But then I needed to use it again, and I thought, well, I'm not going to bug my friends, so I went out and bought it. As you're working on your vehicle, just look for good sales on these. I think, again, I got this at Harbor Freight. It was a good sale. They had like a something % off. I went in, got a super deal on it. You can have patience on it. You don't need it right away. You're going to need it for one day. And so if you think you're going to be working on cars in the future, great, buy it. But if not, I would definitely ask a friend if they have one and just use it for them for a day. Spray cans. You wouldn't believe how much of the spray cans I went through. Now, on the very bare frame itself, I sandblasted that frame myself and then repainted it. And instead of having it dipped professionally so that the seal would be, forever on there, which I think I should have done, I didn't. I went out and I primed it and I painted it a gloss black frame myself. Again, I'll show you pictures and videos of it, hopefully maybe on this one. But the amount of paint that you go through is unbelievable. So keep that in mind. Lights, 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 lights. What you don't see on a lot of videos and books and anything else about restoring a car is lighting. Lighting is so important. When you're restoring your car, you want to see everything that you're doing, and you're going to need some good lights. And I suggest some LEDs, and I suggest that they be removable, and so that you can take them with you. You can set them wherever you want. You can hook them up. I mean, I had hood lights, corded lights, cordless lights, work site lights. And out of all the experience I have out of lights, let me tell you, the brightest lumen LED lights that you can find, get. And especially if you can put them on a stand, so that if you're putting them on the floor or to the side of the car, in back of the car, underneath the car, you can do so, because that's going to be invaluable. You got to see what you're doing, and you want good lighting when you do so. If you think in a garage or a shed or barn, you're going to have good lighting from your little flashlight that you're going to use, think again. I mean, I even had an LED cap with little LED lights on there. It actually worked pretty well. I even had an LED cap, had little LED lights on it. Didn't work too bad. I even had a head strap light that you could, bend around to use. That wasn't bad either. But the biggest lumen lights that you can find, the better off you're going to be when you're restoring your car. A fridge, very important, because when you're working on the car, you're going to be thirsty. And this baby during the spring and summer is well stocked with refreshments, mainly water, soda, beer, an occasional bourbon. But yes, have that handy so that you're not going in and out of the house with your dirty shoes. It's a good one. Tunes. Tunes is important. When you're working on your car, there's nothing better to have some nice, good old-fashioned 50s, 60s, 70s music blaring in the background. Gets you in the mood, passes the time, and helps you with your work. So, tunage. Also, having a toolbox is a good idea. It should be a given that you need a nice sized toolbox if you're going to do a restoration, because if your tools are all over your area and you're unorganized, it's going to get frustrating and it's going to take a lot of time to restore that car. So, with that being said, this is my setup. Not that you should follow it, obviously. I certainly wouldn't, because it's not that organized, but yeah, somewhat. But razors. You're going to need a lot of razors, because you're going to have to cut a lot of boxes of the materials that are coming in. You're going to have to cut some hoses. You're going to have to cut some wires. Very important. Screwdrivers. Get a lot of good screwdrivers for your system. Flatheads, Phillips. I even have specialty ones with hooks on them right here. And short Phillips, long Phillips. Also drill bits. Make sure you have a lot of drill heads for your screwdrivers. The more tools for you to restore your car, the better off you're going to be. Another drawer for Torx and square screwdrivers. Multitude of them. Did I use a lot of them? No. But if I did, were they there? Yes. Instead of you stopping your restoration process because you have to go to the store. Sockets. I can't tell you how important good sockets are. Drives for them, because there are going to be so many bolts to take off, and some are going to be really stuck and some are not. Some are going to be huge also. And also very important to have breaker bars, because you're going to run into a lot of bolts that are going to be stuck. I would also suggest impact sockets, because I might as well show you now. You should get yourself a nice impact wrench. This, I also have one of these for tighter areas, and it helped me out quite a bit. Saves you a lot of time. So as we're talking about that, we should talk about an air compressor. It's a beauty. It holds a lot of pressure, so if you can get one this size for your job, the better. This had magnets on the other side. I took them off for another experiment that I was doing, but this is going to be very important to you when you're stripping down your vehicle. You put all your bolts and screws and nuts and so on and so forth in this. And then, of course, you're going to be marking everything that you take off in sequence and putting it away in a box. More extensions, sockets, so on, extra wrenches. You really won't need metric for your old car. I forgot what year they started doing metric on vehicles, but if it's in the 60s, I believe even in the 70s, you're going to be okay. Those are things that you need for restoring a car. Good old-fashioned lug nut wrench. Now when I say you need a socket set, this is what I used to take apart my car and put it back together. It's not one of those, $300, $400, $500 things where there's 500 pieces in this big old chest. This is simply what I used. Now, what I bought after the restoration, but I suggest if you see it on sale or something you get, is this is pass-through sockets. That's going to help you with some of those body bolts that you're going to be stripping your car with. It helps a lot, because you're going to need some really extra long sockets or a set of those. This, I actually got this from the guy who sold me the car, so I was very fortunate. This will really, really come in handy, because you're going to be looking at parts not knowing what you have or what you need. And if you look in this book, it should explain pretty well what you need. Also, these cans right here are invaluable to you when you're taking apart your car, because these penetrating oils and penetrating lubricants, WD-40 of course, and even brake cleaner to clean off a lot of parts as you're taking them apart, are going to be of great help to you. I suggest even before you start your restoration, get the penetrating oil cans. You're going to need it. Also of help was creeper, helps you get underneath the vehicle, very important to get. Also I got a little stool, which helps when you're working on the side of the vehicle, taking apart a body panel, working on the bumpers, taking them off. Little stool, costs you maybe, what, $20, $30, well worth it. I don't know anybody that can restore a car and not have jack stands. I would suggest at least 4, because there will be a period where you're going to put your vehicle on these jack stands, and that's the only thing that it's going to be sitting on. So at least 4, get some really good jack stands, a definite need before restoring your car. Another suggestion, not that you need it, not that I really even used it much, getting some type of torch, because you're going to need to heat some of the bolts up just to loosen them up before you just strip the entire bolt off. Also, simple little thing like if you're restoring your car, a lot of things are stripped off and suddenly your car is moving while you're working on it, especially if you're underneath it. You gotta have these. 2 should do it, but to play it safe, get 4. They're not that much money. Also, work gloves, very helpful, especially on items that you need to get a good grip on and you can't with your bare hands. These are real important. Again, you look for a good sale, you can get a bunch of these for cheap, cheap, cheap. As you can see, I'm colorblind, but whatever. Wrench sets are very important. You're gonna want both metric and the other type. Not that you're gonna need metric, but sometimes there's a bolt that is so rusted or so melted from the years of abuse, from the elements or whatever, that a metric wrench actually works better. So I would suggest getting that. Also of vice grips, because for those bolts that you just can't strip off, you need the vice grips for them. I know I use mine on several occasions. Earplugs, And safety glasses. Safety glasses should be used always when you're working on your car. I always wore mine. The earbuds, if you're gonna have that big air compressor running and you're in an enclosed garage, when that goes off, it's deafening. So just put the earbuds on and you're good. Now, it does affect you with your tunes when they're playing, but better to save your ears than be deaf with tinnitus like some of us. Another thing you need is garb. Obviously nothing fancy. I mean, I look like a dork in some of the stuff that I was wearing. All right, so now you see what I wear and what I use for tools on my car. I hope it gives you a good insight and gives you some ideas of what you need before you start your restoration. Leave me some comments below on things that maybe I missed, maybe some of the things to be adding or I really don't need. But again, just showed you what I was using when I restored my car. So stay tuned for upcoming adventures as far as what I did for restoring my car. I'll take you through the steps, take you through the process. I'll also be talking to the people who I actually sent the car to for the body work. Should be a lot of fun. Thanks for tuning in. God bless. Take care. I'll see you later.